And before we get this going, I'd like to first and foremost send a huge shout out to all the firefighters, both on ground and in the air, battling the LA and Palisades fire on the West Coast. Not all heroes wear capes, but you guys are absolutely the heroes of those people who are needing you the most right now. So keep up the good work, and we're all very proud of you. Welcome to the Vertical MRO Podcast. Today, we are thrilled to have Mr. Mike Broderick, a seasoned professional with over 53 years of experience in the rotorcraft industry. Mike's extensive career spans various roles, including A&P technician, technical consultant, and management positions across multiple organizations. In this two-part podcast, we'll explore Mike's journey into aviation and discuss some of the most impactful missions he's been a part of throughout his career. We'll dive into his experiences during the 1984 Olympics in LA and how those moments shaped his professional path. Mike is currently the owner of RotorDock LLC and serves as a consultant for Turbo Pure Water, where he focuses on innovative solutions for aviation maintenance. He also contributes as an editorial writer for Helicopter Maintenance Magazine. We'll learn about the fiscal and operational benefits of water distillation systems for turbine fleets and the importance of continuous education and training in our aviation industry. With the ongoing shortage of A&P technicians, Mike will share critical insights on attracting and retaining new talent, particularly among younger generations like Gen Z. He'll discuss the collective responsibility of organizations in addressing this issue and the purpose of innovative strategies to inspire future aircraft maintainers. Additionally, we'll touch on the significance of mentorship in the helicopter maintenance and how experienced technicians can guide the next generation. Lastly, Mike will highlight his numerous awards and recognitions throughout his career, including the very prestigious Charles E. Taylor Award for 50 years as an A&P technician. We'll also discuss his current roles within industry committees that focus on workforce development and technical maintenance. Join us as we dive into Mike's remarkable career, and it truly is remarkable, and gain valuable insights from one of the industry's leading experts. I'm Val. This is Vertical MRO. Let's get this going. Special thanks to our sponsors for this podcast, Precision Aviation Group and Robinson Helicopter Company.
Welcome to the Vertical MRO Podcast, brought to you by Vertical HeliCASTS.
All right, everyone, you're ready to contact. You're cleared to the Bravo.
The Vertical MRO Podcast explores the fascinating world of helicopter maintenance, repair, and overhaul with your host, Val Medved.
Now, line altimeter 3029, approved as requested.
The podcast features helicopter technicians, mechanics, engineers, and MRO experts who share invaluable industry insight, knowledge, and stories that will inspire current and aspiring industry maintainers.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Vertical MRO. Yours truly, Val Medved, back in the house here with my buddy Gray Goose, Mr. John Gray. Welcome back, buddy.
Hey, Val. How you doing, sir?
Not too bad. On the right side of terra firma is always a good day.
Yeah, I will say I'm excited for today's conversation. When we reach out to look for guests to be on the show, we're always looking for someone with the amount of experience and influence that this guest has. And I was lucky enough to reach out to my friend Brian Smith from the airborne law enforcement community. He's really involved with the Airborne Public Safety Association. And in fact, he ran their safety program for about 10 years. Mm-hmm. And I said, Brian, hey, I'm looking for some good law enforcement folks to join the Vertical MRO Podcast. And Mike, who I slipped already. I'll let you introduce him, Val. But our guest name was the very first name that came out of Brian's mouth, and this is going to be a great conversation, and I'm honored to speak with him.
Yeah, you know what, and coming from the industry, him and I have crossed paths on a few times in a good way, in such a great way. With over 53 years of experience, man, you got to tap into that knowledge, and this man is willing to kind of hand it out. You know, he's been a part of a few engine lines, a few product lines, and he's been represented in a high regard by, like you said, with Brian Smith, and he's right up there. He's kind of like a top three for me for guys that have been in the industry for as long as they have, that still have a great reputation. So to that note, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Mr. Mike Broderick to the Vertical MRO Show. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you, guys. And you guys keep up the compliments. My head's going to swell beyond the picture here.
That's all right, dude. That's all right. That is all right. How are we feeling today, sir?
Well, we're doing all right for an old guy on what is today? Tuesday all day. So
as long as you didn't use the fingers to count, right? We're good.
No. We're doing okay. Thank you very much for asking. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here and speak with you guys. And feel very complimented that first off, Brian Smith, he's right up there with the top of the group.
Yeah,
I enjoyed working with him. The law enforcement people lost a guy when he disappeared off of the scene. So
yeah, Brian has a special place in my heart. Not just
that was not a good thing, but I'm glad to hear that he's still doing well. And Val, it's good seeing you again. It's been a long time since we've seen each other.
Yes, sir. Yep.
And John, God, it's been since yesterday.
Well, good to see you again, Mike.
Yeah, great seeing you again.
What part of the world do we find you in, Mike? Where you at?
Where am I at right now? Living in Arizona.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I moved from the left coast. Thank you, Gavin Newsom. Over to Arizona with all the old folks over here, and
that's okay.
It was a good move. It was a good move. Other than the heat in the summer, it's been a great move.
Oh, right now you're in absolute perfect conditions, from what I understand. You guys are waking up in the mornings to the 40s and 50s, and daytime highs around 60s and 70s.
Yep,
that's awesome stuff.
Yeah, it's hard to beat.
Yep.
Don't brag too much. We don't want any more snowbirds.
Hey, I lived there for 3 years. I get the lifestyle. I understand it. This is probably the nicest time of the year you can be down there, and you take it all in. So that's awesome. Let's get into it here. That we introduced you, Mike. For those that don't know you, which probably are like 3 or 4 people, maybe under rocks, in our helicopter industry. Let's give them a quick little, let's give them as much time as you need to kind of tell them who you are, where you kind of jumped in, and you've been doing this for 53 years. So this is going to be a great epic show today. So I'll leave it up to you, sir.
Okay. Well, aviation, kind of where I started in Burbank, California. I lived under the flight path of the Burbank airport. And so, you stop conversations when all the airplanes fly over.
It still happens.
It still happens.
Yep.
So, growing up in that aviation town kind of slanted me that direction. What really got me going there was I enjoyed working on cars and drag racing, not only legally, but street racing. That's where you make your money there.
Yep.
And as I was, there was a great strip. It's pretty much gone now because of all the housing that's put in, but on Balboa Boulevard next to the Van Nuys Airport, that was a good place for all of us street racers to catch up with one another. And what intrigued me was the Learjets that were taking off, making lots of noise and going fast. And I thought, that would be an interesting thing to join, to become part of. As my misspent youth would have it, I just kind of drifted around after high school, working in different automotive shops, mechanic, selling parts, working on different Porsches and VWs mainly is where I was. And along came Vietnam.
You went into the most difficult ones, the German ones, right away.
Oh yeah, well it was. I enjoyed working with them, and they were a fun car to play with.
Sure.
My street racing cars were all Chevys. That's just kind of where I went from there. I stayed with the American cars when it came to that. But Vietnam came along, and they were starting to draft people. And rather than get drafted and become fodder for what was going to be a losing situation, I joined the Navy Air Reserves and wanted to get into be an aircraft mechanic. They originally signed me up there and told me, "Yep, you can do that." First 3 weeks in boot camp, the DI calls me into his office and said, "We've looked at what you're good at, and avionics, which is where they were going to send me." He said, "That doesn't fit your scores, so pick something else." I said, "Oh, great! Then I would like to become." Either in helicopters or jet engines. And there was a school there. I went to big boot camp in Memphis. He said, "Okay, you got that." And 2 weeks later, he called me back into his office again. He said, "Broderick, you're one dumb SOB." Okay, yes, sir. Whatever you say, sir. And he said, "You're too stupid to even be a mechanic."
Oh boy.
Yeah.
So he made you a
appreciate the
pilot.
compliment.
I beat you to it, Val.
Hey, great minds, buddy. Great minds.
Yeah. So I said, okay, so, what's up now, sir? And he told me that they were going to send me to AG school. AG is an aerographer's mate. Translation, weatherman.
Mhm.
So they sent me off to New Jersey, and I spent 18 weeks learning how to stick my finger out the window, wet my thumb, and figure out where the rain was coming from and which way that the wind was blowing. Come to find out, that wasn't the issue. The issue had nothing to do with being too dumb to be a mechanic. The issue was back at my training base, they needed a weatherman, and I got designated, and that's how I ended up in it. But I showed them while I was serving the rest of my reserve time. I went to A&P school at Glendale College, which was not too far. I think that's when they had an A&P program, and got my license and kind of went from there. First place I went to work was a place called Pacific Aeromotive. We worked on the RB211 engine, which was in the L1011, and the JT9s. Worked 89 days there. Then they went on strike. Then ended up going over to a company called Aviation Power Supply, which ultimately became Aviol, which ultimately became Boeing.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. I mean, and worked, they hired me because I had an A&P license and I had some experience on the larger engines, but stuck me in with what they call the lawnmower engines, which was the Rolls-Royce or the Allison 250. And I fell into that. I kind of liked that engine. And then there became an opportunity to run that, what they call the repair department. I managed that for maybe a year. And then there was an opportunity to become a tech rep on the Rolls-Royce engine. And
so sorry to jump in here, Mike. So you started cranking on C-17s?
B-17s, 250s, C-20Bs.
Wow.
That was all at the time. The C-18 engine, which was the original 370 horsepower engine, that was being converted to the C-20, and helicopters were coming into their own. Thank you, Vietnam. That's what drove our industry. That's why we all are being able to sit here and talk today, is because of
absolutely.
Helicopter pilots came back, wanted something to do, so they started doing news reports and surveying and so on.
And the Bell 47s?
Yep.
Yeah.
And it started with the Bell 47s. Then of course, the pipeline was going pretty strong back in the 70s, and that really opened up the industry for the helicopter there.
Yep.
And I became traveling tech rep with a couple of other guys at APS. My first job out in the field was traveling up to Anchorage, working for, trying to think of the name of the company. I think it was It's
understandable.
Okay, it's gone.
It was a while ago, yeah.
Yeah,
it's all good. It's all good.
Gone. But my first was changing a turbine out and in the field. Did all the work, changed all the components, did the ground run up, and figured everything was fine. And I was buttoning up my tools and signed off on the paperwork. And pilot had shut the engine down, signing off on his part of the stuff. And I started to pack stuff up, and he said, "Where are you going?" And I said, "We're all finished, right? I mean, everything looked good, no leaks, no rattles, no bangs. Everything looks good." He said, "Son," and that shows you how old I was then. He said, "Son, if you're not going to get in it, I'm not going to get in it. We're going for a ride."
Right.
And I said, I get to go for a flight. And then it dawned on me that I had somebody's life in my hands, and that I had just performed a service for him. And if I didn't have the confidence in my own work, he certainly didn't have the confidence in my work either. And that was kind of a career-changing event right at that point.
Yeah.
So first flight was across the tundra up in Alaska, and after that, then it was, every time I got a chance to fly, I always took advantage of it. So,
one of our past guests here, Beth Christianos, just mentioned that she's in kind of the quality support side of the world. And she says it comes down to the domino effect where the pilot is entrusting his life in the mechanic's hands, and anybody that's a passenger has to entrust their life in the pilot's hands. And it's kind of that effect that kind of it's the weight of that statement that you just said, Mike, that, you know, if I'm not going to trust, if you're not getting into it, neither am I.
yeah,
I understand that completely.
Thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company, the choice for unrivaled safety and reliability, so you can accomplish any mission with confidence. For more than half a century, Robinson has been at the forefront of the helicopter industry. From the R-22 to the R-66 turbine, Robinson makes helicopters accessible so more people can accomplish more missions. Climb higher. For additional information, visit www.robinsonheli.com.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's stayed in the back of my mind each time that I worked on one of these things. You never know. And as I've been very fortunate in that all of the aircraft that I worked on successfully flew after I got done working on them. And John, I was telling you, I mean, you've got listed on your little script here that one of the most exciting things was the 1984 Olympics.
Yeah.
That was back in the 80s, late 70s, early 80s, they were doing bank runs. I don't know if you remember, where they were picking up checks at all the different banks, flying them over to the local airports, dropping them in business aircraft, and then flying them to the East Coast. And that's how they would transfer their funds back and forth. And the helicopters would go to the banks in local areas, pick up the checks in a bag, and then fly them out. The one company gave me a call. They had landed on top of the Bank of America building in downtown Los Angeles, a 30-story building, and he got a chip light. Went there. I mean, you have to go through all kinds of security to get up and down on the elevator. Went up there, he got and it was a bottom chip plug, which kind of indicates that you don't know where the metal is coming from, but it's definitely, and it was pretty significant. So we couldn't just fly it off of the roof. So we changed the engine up there. The elevator that went
Full swap engine.
Yeah.
Wow.
We had to disassemble the engine into modules because the whole engine and the people wouldn't fit in the elevator going up and down, along with the security guy. There was a security guy with us the whole time.
Sure. Your BOA building, man. That's
I'm sure I'm going to walk away with tons of money up there. But so we broke it down into modules, took it up to the top floor, put it all back together. Pull the other engine out using the rotor blade and a sling to swing the blades, to swing the engine off. Disassemble that one, took it downstairs, put it in the truck to take it back to the shop, and then reassemble that other engine, slung it back up on the blades. And this is all going on. It took about 2 days to do all of this fun stuff. There was 2 of us doing it.
Wow.
Did the ground run, and then somebody said, time to get in it. And they all, all eyes looked at me and said, Mikey, you'll do it. So.
Oh, it's such a great reference. Give it to Mikey, he'll do it.
Yeah, Mikey will do it. So
that's right.
We got in it and hovered around the roof a little bit and then flew off the edge of the roof. And I don't know if you've ever done that, where you've been on one elevation and then you fly off. It's like flying off the edge of a canyon, or again, 30 floors down, all of a sudden just drops out of the chin bubble and you are there. And it was an amazing feat. Again, back in the back of my mind, it was, got this guy's life in my hands and here again. So that was kind of awesome. That was one of the fun things we did.
When you tell that story, I think about how aviation takes you places you never imagined you'd be. To set the stage for the story you just told, that was in 1984 during the Olympics that were held in the city of Los Angeles. So you think about, the city of Los Angeles must have had different venues all over the city, with each individual venue probably having their own TFR setup over each thing. So think about the logistics that go into place of getting in there. And then, like you said, you're in a secure building. So getting all these parts, all this equipment into an elevator, up an elevator, and onto a lot of those rooftop pads aren't huge. So I can imagine, having very limited space to work with. What was that like in that area you were working?
It was different. I mean, you had to be creative, and that was one of the things that we figured things out as we went. I mean, the first thing was, how are we going to get these engines in and out? They're 150 pounds. I mean, you could muscle them out, but the opportunity of trying to get it loosened on the mounts and then lift it out by hand and then hand it down to somebody else didn't work. So we said, okay, well, we can pull the blades, get the come along close to the root of the blade where the strongest part is, rotate the main rotor blade over there and drop it down. Now,
man, that's old school thinking.
Up and down that way, And again, you kind of go iscus for biscus, and you hope it doesn't, nothing breaks. And the guys that I was with, I mean, everybody was creative, and I think a lot of that has gone away in these days. People are afraid to make these kind of decisions. I don't know whether anybody would do that again. I don't know what they would do, but I don't know if they would certainly do the same tactics we did.
You're probably not wrong, Mike. You're probably not wrong. There's too much litigious society going on right now. So I'd imagine that probably wouldn't be practiced anytime soon.
Oh, no. I mean, they would have. I'm not quite sure what they would have done to get the helicopter off of the roof, if they would have hooked it and brought it off with a bigger helicopter or something else. But you're right. Our infamous lawyers have taken away the creativity in a lot of these areas. And, if the lawyers were there when the Wright brothers decided to take off, first off, they never would have let Charlie make the engine that way, the way he did.
Yep.
And then they would have said, no, too much legal stuff here. You guys
argued first and foremost, like, you're going to do what with what? No.
Oh, yeah.
That's not happening.
It's unfortunate because it's been the creativity and the ability to think on your feet, I think, that has taken this industry as far as it has.
Sure. The other part about that too is probably these are root pillars to the creativity side of what technology has become nowadays. So I've got to imagine that they've taken some of that. I have to believe, to have kind of a good side of a belief, that they've taken some of that and implemented that into the technology that we see today. So it might not be all dead, but at the same time, they've probably made it just a little bit easier for that to kind of happen. Like there's got to be still situations like that upon rooftops where they have to kind of do that, where they basically say, how do we make this happen? And, or does this building now have the capabilities of having like a sling up there, or some type of a boom to sling that kind of stuff up there in case that happens? So,
right.
I wonder.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's, again, that's the, I guess you got to cover yourself on all of that stuff. But it's the other thing too, is that I know that some of the tribal knowledge that we've picked up along the way and the troubleshooting that you would do, I would get calls, especially in, being the tech reps, we would get calls, the engines wouldn't start, or they would do this, or they would do that. And we would give advice over the phone. Okay, do the following. And if the attorneys heard that, they would be pulling their hair out. They wouldn't allow you to do that.
John, this is going to be one of those guys. Mike's going to be one of those guys. I told you they do exist. They still exist, and there's probably about a handful. Mike, and respectively Mike Sr., Mike Guttner Sr.
Oh, yeah.
Which I know you know very well. These are the type of guys, they would hear it over the phone and tell you what to diagnose just by them listening. That's the type of tribal knowledge that we're talking about here. So good on you, sir. That's like you're on a handful of people between maybe yourself, Mr. Mike Guttner Sr., and maybe Heroes Kajbaruni as well.
Yep. All
three of you. There's like that is like 300, almost like probably 250 or 300 years of experience that are talking. It's three guys to kind of get that kind of stuff taken care of.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I know both of them obviously very well. I work for Heroes, and Mike Gunther and I have, we greet each other with "You're still alive." We see each other at the airport, at the conventions.
Yeah.
Or are you a figment of my imagination?
No, he's, he's still afraid. Like, he says he's retired, but I know he's still tinkering someplace. No. He's still tinkering someplace. He says, well, I don't want to retire because I've always heard about my friends retiring, and then 3 months later they're gone. I'm not retiring.
Yeah, well, that's it.
Yep.
This industry brings, you've got to have a passion for it. And you just want to do it. My wife has asked me a couple of times, so when are you going to retire? Well, I guess I'm not going to. I'll continue to write for the magazine like I do.
Yep.
If the occasional phone call, I'm on everybody's forgotten list when it comes to call for troubleshooting.
Yep.
I get those calls occasionally, and talking to, it's not so much technical as much anymore, where I have to make guide them through that decision, because they're not allowed to do it.
Yeah.
And that's the sad things about the OEMs, their tech reps. Once every other month, we have a podcast for mechanics through airborne law enforcement or whatever they are this week. And the tech reps are not allowed to get on the phone and answer questions because of, again, our good friends, the attorneys, have said, you might say something that's contrary to, and you could create a lawsuit. And how are we going to exchange knowledge if we can't do that?
Yeah. It's got to come through the experience, like you said, and kind of taking it, and maybe it's the expressing of the opinions that should be kind of verbalized, instead of like, it's what you know, Mike, and what you kind of really want to show people. Those times are different nowadays. And to talk about the passion of our industry, the way you just have, and your wife has always asked, when are you ever going to get out? I've said it once, I'll say it 1,000 times, man. We're like the mafia. There's only one way out. Only one way out. I'm like Al Pacino. I've tried to get out twice, and you pull me back in. Like it's
And you know what? And you're right. Right. The guys that truly think this is more than just being a mechanic are the ones that are still hanging around, long of tooth and, bald heads and all the other stuff.
Tone deaf on the one side.
Tone deaf. Yeah. Tone deaf.
Yeah, we were joking about this offline, but we won't mention why. I love you, honey.
I'm fortunate my wife is out for the day, so for the time, so she can't hear any of this good stuff unless I show her this podcast.
Until she listens to it, then you're in trouble, brother.
Yeah.
Yep.
Part of it, like I said, it just the industry is. And that's what I tell people that want to become aviation mechanics. If you want to be a real mechanic, you'll become a helicopter mechanic. There's nothing more challenging than a helicopter. You think about all of the stresses that it's under, all of the day to day. It's what it's trying to do is destroy itself.
Yeah,
and it's your job.
Forces.
Yeah. It's your job to kind of keep it together. And it challenges you in ways that are new in each and every time, because different stuff breaks at different times. And as you correct one thing, you're patching it and fixing it for another. And that's to me, that's the joy of it all, is that it challenges your creativity, and it keeps you into it. And the family of helicopter mechanics is pretty small.
It's a brotherhood and sisterhood that's unlike any other, I think, because everyone thinks our industry is big, it's massive, but it really isn't. Like we have like-minded individuals. Like, first and foremost, we have the wop sickness. Like, I still run to the window when I'm like, if there's something flying overhead, I'm scanning the skies. My wife goes, "You're such a kid when this happens." we get in the middle of a ceremony of some sort, and I can hear it. I'm like, "Oh, I know what that is."
Yeah, you look up and you're instantly going, "Okay, I recognize that. I recognize that sound. That Texas 4 count, 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2."
Yep. But to that point, like I said, this family of ours, listen, look what it produced out. It created this awesome show. And, you know, like John's the forefront father of this thing because he created Hangar Z. So because of that, you know, he's like, we've been able to branch off with Vertical Mag and all the stuff like that.
Right.
So now they produce some seriously really kick-ass shows because of that sickness. You know,
Yeah.
it's, you know, like, what's that guy's name? Halsey? Something like that.
I don't know.
We still
like
rip into this. It's so good. But like, he's got a great, you know, he's got the Real Helicopter Show. And then there's Quinny, who is just Red Bull energized because he hops out of perfectly good helicopters and rescue missions. He's awesome, right? Like we have some really good, but again, because of that, we're able to develop this and look where we're kind of now heading off and having a guest like you on this show today. So,
well, yeah. And the more we spread that and the more information that we get
Yes.
out to the aspiring
Yep.
A&Ps, and this is something that I've been preaching to the Helicopter Association, or I think it's VAI now.
VAI, yep.
Yeah.
Verticon, yeah.
That's hard to say. You know? They keep wringing their hands and saying, we've got to interest more guys in here. Let's put more stuff on our website. That doesn't get it. In order to attract more mechanics to this industry, this is a sales job. It's a marketing job. And how do you do sales? Eyeball to eyeball. You go out there and you go to the schools and you have them, and hopefully these podcasts with old farts like me, somebody will look at it and go, yeah, maybe this is an interesting industry. But we've got to do more of that. We've got to do more outreach where you've got a person that's experienced talking to the new people coming into the industry and explaining to them and showing them the fun side of all of this. Yeah, it's a lot of work. Yeah, sometimes, you're stuck in some pretty crappy environments. I mean, you know, in the middle of a snowstorm somewhere, or you're stuck in a cold hangar working on stuff. You're trying to double up in a space that's built for a 2x2 guy, and you're 6'4" and you're in there crawling around and cussing the engineers.
You had an extra large pizza the night before, now you're really screwed.
Yeah. And cussing the engineers for putting it wherever they did because they know they would never have to work on it.
Yeah.
Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
We've had a couple of guests in the past who just talked exactly about that there, Mike. And they're fairly young too. And the best part about it is that they're kind of almost in that medium world of where old school meets the new school of things. And they've kind of now, they've taken what they've learned from the past and from guys, like you say, when you call yourself the old fart, but they've taken that tribal knowledge and built it into their repertoire and put themselves in a situation where they're working in a hellhole, or they kind of jumping into, like you say, slinging an engine off of a 7-foot platform and taking it out of there. But they're now kind of incorporating what they think now is the right way to do it and keeping it all within the books, of course. But like, I think I still reflect upon this a few times. Our buddy, remember our guest, Kevin Shed there, John, where he talks about, fixing, he's underneath a helicopter at 12:30 in the morning, but at the same time, the northern lights are dancing above him because he's in the middle of the bush up in northern BC.
Yeah.
So that type of cool experiences, that I think that's what this show is really, we're bringing out the best of us because it's our industry has some pretty cool people, and yourself included. So it's when we're talking about that.
And I did, you're right. Saw the northern lights. I mean, I was up in Fairbanks in April, and you look up and you go, what is that? Oh my God, it is. It's really the Northern Lights. They really do exist. I mean, living in Southern California, you never saw them. The Northern Light was, the street light down at the north end of the block.
Yeah. So I get them all the time here, so I take it for granted. I get them all the time here, late summer, early fall. It's still stunning to me, but it's like I tell some of my deep South American friends, they just can't comprehend it.
Yeah.
No, you can't. I mean, there's just something about it, and I've tried to explain that to people.
Yep.
I just, celebrated, hard to believe, number 80 for the birthdays.
Oh,
right.
Happy belated, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm 3 days older than dirt. But
did you bring it? Did you at least bring out the fire extinguisher?
well, yeah, I did, and they had the fire department stationed outside. When we lit the thing off. But yeah, it did. It scorched the ceiling, but
created a hot spot.
I went through. What did I learn in 80 years? To all the people that I invited, friends and family to a gathering, and those were some of the things. And you try to explain that stuff to them, and you show, this is all these experiences give you who you're looking at right now today, and they're experiences that I was fortunate enough to share, and I again relate back to the fact that I became a helicopter mechanic, that I did not get stuck working in a hangar day after day or working for the airline changing tires for 20 years.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, but
no, and if this is what you like,
that's right.
Good on you. But to me, I didn't go through the A&P training to get that. And then, I always, like I said, I felt like I needed to move to pay it forward. And that's when I started writing. And that's when I started doing the IA seminars and giving presentations.
Yeah.
Is trying to share some of that. And as much as I share, I get back from the audience. This is why I like the in-person IAs and also the in-person training sessions.
Mm-hmm.
You get back because there's always somebody that either challenges you with a question or they've got an experience themselves that they share with the group, and you can take it along.
And what's neat about that is you can then take what you learned in that particular class, the things you liked, and share that to the next class and the next class. So essentially you pick and choose the tidbits of information that are worth passing on, and then you share that. So you become kind of a carrier pigeon for the best practices that you've learned as a result of teaching your classes across the world. I love that. That's great.
Yeah, it's all part of the experience. And when I wake up cussing the music and I think, wow, what another crappy day, then I realize I've had a great career. It's continuing, I hope. And as long as I can still sit in front of the computer and as long as I can write articles that people will read, then I'm able to share some of this stuff. I'm also learning as I go. There's only so much that you can share unless you start learning new stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I try to get involved in, what's going on in the drone industry. I mean, and that industry is just absolutely taken us by storm.
Yep.
It's and the unmanned vehicle is the wave of the future, but it's overwhelmed the FAA to the point of they don't know what to do with them. I mean, there's 2 million of these little, small drones that are flying around out there, and there's 2 million pilots that can't find their hands with both hands at a flashlight most of the time. These guys, I mean, and this is the part that's concerning to me about that industry is that you go into the hobby shop and maybe you walk in there and you couldn't spell drone and you walk out and you're the one responsible for the maintenance, all the safety laws, all of the fact that you're now part of the aerospace, that your little vehicle is just as important in the air as the 747 or the helicopter that's usually flying in your airspace.
We're not even going to get into what's being discussed in the news here, guys, because your seaboards are now seeing that influx of big drone activity right now, which is still unknown and nobody knows why, which is weird.
Yeah. I mean, and that there's some scary things that drones can do that, and people are beginning to realize them, not only, I mean, they can get into places and get out. You can't see those things. Speaking, as a pilot, you can't see them. They're smaller than birds and they're faster.
Right.
So,
and
tighter regulations, you figure? Like they should only be allowed to fly a certain height?
Well, they are only allowed to fly, the guys that fly under Part 107 can only go up to 400 feet. AGL.
Roger that. Okay.
And that's, that's created some good use for them. But now they're wanting to, now these guys that are making money with them are itching to do more things. They want to fly beyond visual line of sight. That's a bit scary. They want to fly over crowds. They want to fly at night, which is what they're doing. And there's not enough regulatory information out there that's keeping them from doing it. Like I said, the guy in a hobby shop, you don't have to be qualified to buy it at a hobby shop.
Right.
You can walk in there and get it and walk out. And you don't have to become a rated pilot. You can just go out and start making money with it if you want on your own. And there have been guys that have done that and gotten themselves into, some kind of trouble.
Would you think it's because it's it's an infantile stage right now? It's kind of almost like the start of the helicopter stages and back in whenever they started flying in the 40s and 30s and 40s and 50s. Do you think it's maybe along that same their line of until it start figuring out the performance factors?
Yeah, I unfortunately, most of the FAA regulations are written by accident, and that means there was an accident that happened.
Yep.
And it caused it. And not wishing ill on anybody, but it's going to take a major accident in order for them to snap these things into bring them into the fold.
Yep. Yeah. Unfortunately.
I mean, none of the manufacturers are controlled by the FAA. These things are not certified. They're not built to any specifications that the FAA has laid out there. They're built to whatever they want to build them to.
Yeah.
And they're fairly, they're fairly reliable, but when they're not. When the battery goes Tango uniform, or when the blade breaks, or they bump into something, or they fall out of the sky, they just do. And it's very sudden. And again, you've got guys that are inspecting those things that don't really understand them. So
there are some really, really good applications to the drones that are out there. Like I've seen some ag applications, and I think that is a perfect application for them to be working in a grid when they're crop dusting and spraying and stuff like that. I think that's a massive application to it. I think there's going to be SAR capabilities now in some of them where they're kind of like, again, working in a grid in a heavily dense forest area or something, and they're looking for hot spots, and so that kind of stuff. Agreed to you. Like it's there is a good spot for them. And believe it or not, there is a company out there that has real close to getting certified a Robinson R-44 that is unmanned
drone.
Oh boy.
Yep.
Wow.
I mean, and they've got it controlled. They've flown it, and it's going to the guy that's running that company. He knows exactly his spot. He's staying in his lane. He doesn't want to get into anything other than this is the area. I can convert this helicopter to where it'll be a perfect ag operation. He's going to fly it under Part 107 with a variance, so that he can do it. He's not going to fly it beyond visual line of sight. All he wants to do is produce a helicopter that is economical enough for an ag operator to use. But he's staying with all of the major components that have been FAA approved.
Set the chart, let
Best
it fly.
of both worlds.
Gotcha. Go ahead, John. You look like you got a question there, buddy. Sorry.
Well, no, the guy, I think his name's Halsey or something like that.
Oh yeah. Scheider?
Mike Halsey Scheider is his real name. We like to make fun of him, but he's the host of the Helicopter Podcast, and he had the founder of that company on his podcast to talk about his vision for that helicopter and where they're going with that. It was a really interesting conversation. And that topic comes up a lot in the law enforcement circle. And I think initially in all aviation circles, there's a little bit of a misunderstanding, and I think a little bit of discomfort with drones as far as people thinking they were going to replace helicopters early on. And I think the law enforcement community now has taken the approach and understands that it's not going to replace airborne law enforcement helicopters. It's going to become a complementary tool to what we're doing in the industry, which is great. Some of the things that we do, we spend a lot of time with a barricaded subject, for example, inside of a house. You don't need to orbit that house now at 500 feet AGL, disturbing the whole neighborhood. Now you can put a couple drones up, and you can free that air crew up to go do other police work. So these complementary things like that, I think, are going to start popping up, and you'll see that more and more as we go. the ag stuff, the search and rescue stuff. I think those are all great tools.
There's
for
some local
drones.
stuff here, John. Sorry to jump in. There's some local firefighters here, like the Winnipeg Fire Services. They've started using drones now on hotspotting of homes when it's like there's a big burn and it's a full collapse of a house. What they'll do is now put a drone over top it to kind of see if there's any more hotspots that they need to kind of take care of either through the night or a full teardown, right? So it's there's good applications.
There is a great application. I mean, one that I wrote about was Texas DPS. Do you remember? Shoot, I say 5 years. Everything's 5 years back, but I mean it was quite a while back where a gunman entered a church and shot people down in Texas. Then he was chased out of the church.
Was it Uvalde?
By a couple of guys Texas is an open carry state. So they shot him and wounded him, but nobody knew it. They chased him to where he got, he stopped his car in the middle of a field and he was still sitting upright in the truck, surrounded by the Texas DPS. They didn't know what to do, how they could get to him. The helicopter couldn't get a good angle on him to see if he was upright, if he was alive, if he was, going to shoot at him. Mm-hmm. And one of the guys in the back of their patrol car had a drone. They flew it up, they flew it around and found out that the guy was indeed dead. He had died in his driver's seat. And at that point, that's when they realized that they had a place to use the drone for that type of activity. And, that they've ended up, I think they've got over 200 drones for their agency down there now.
Yeah. From your perspective, Mike, as a longtime AMP, what advice and what experience would you say would be most critical to the drone industry from all the lessons you've learned in your time? The Vertical MRO Podcast is powered by Vertical Magazine, the rotorcraft industry's #1 trusted multimedia resource. Visit Vertical Mag Media on YouTube to gain access to exclusive videos featuring operators in the field and more unique content from the pages of Vertical. Subscribe today to stay informed and inspired.
Treated like a helicopter, inspected like a helicopter. It goes through the same stresses and strains. It'll go through all of the same, it goes through the same, as I say, stresses that the helicopter does. The best thing that I can tell any mechanic or pilot, for that matter, when it comes to whether it's a drone or whether it's a helicopter, is get to know it when it's running right. If you take delivery of a new helicopter, go out and do a ground run on it and put your hands all over it. Yes. Run your hands up and down. I mean, pretend it's your first girlfriend.
Shout out to Howie Murray. He stated this a few weeks back. Yeah, he said get the feel for it.
Yep. Put your hands, especially up near the cowling where the engine runs, down the tail boom, and then pay attention to temperatures at idle. Pay attention to oil temperature. Pay attention to all the critical items when the engine's running good, when the helicopter's running good. Take a flight and feel the vibration that is in. Each helicopter has its own vibratory signature. Yep. Each one of them do. But get to know it so that when something goes wrong, you've got something to compare it to. Mm-hmm. Each time you change a major component, note the differences between before and after the major component has changed.
The vibration pitch.
Yep, vibration. Do vibration checks each and every time, and that's one of the things that one of the questions I would ask when they say my engine's running hotter than it should. What's the idle temperature?
There you go.
If you can tell me the idle temperature, then I might be able to guide you as to where you need to go in order to fix your problem. If you don't know the idle temperature, or if you don't know that it was, one temperature yesterday and today it's gone up why? Mm-hmm. And again, make the pilot cognizant of that. And, that's one of the features when I'm teaching human factors is communications between pilots and mechanics. That is, there's the age-old thing of it, we always, as mechanics, pick on the pilots and vice versa. I've heard pilots say A and P, almost a pilot.
That's a good one.
Yeah, well, stick around. I got a bunch of them. I'll be here all week.
Next show's at 4:30.
Yeah. But and vice versa, with the pilots about being arrogant and all of that stuff.
Really, John? Are you?
Yeah.
Just how long does it take a pilot to tell you he's a pilot? I don't know.
Yeah, there he goes.
Yeah, I don't know.
I heard one. Sorry to cut you off here. You know what's the difference between a porcupine and a helicopter?
What's that?
The pricks are on the outside of the porcupine. All right, sir. Let's get back.
All right.
Sir, yeah, sorry, Mike. Let's get back to it.
No. That's understand. See, these are the things, and we're joking about it and making fun, but still, the idea of it is that we're at different levels, pilots and mechanics, when it comes to thinking through a problem. And that's the point I try to make to the mechanics: is the pilot doesn't have the opportunity to go, I wonder what's going on. He's got to make quick decisions, and he's got to make them, it's life or death as to what he does. And he's used to doing that, and he's used to all those decisions, and he's used to being command of his environment. So when it comes to him talking to you or she talking to you about this is broke, it did this, fix it, and call me when it's done type of a thing. That's the way they operate. And you've got to understand that it's not them being against you, just that's their personality. So you need to work with that personality.
Yep.
And the pilots need to understand that in order for a mechanic to get through to find the problem, he's got to ask a series of questions. They may be a pain in the butt, but in order for me to do that and find out what's wrong, I've got to ask you these questions. And I want you to be as observant as you can about it. And if nothing else, if you can't still come to a significant, if it's okay, go for a flight.
Yeah.
And take a flight and pay attention to what you feel and what the pilot's telling you. This is what he noticed. But trust that the pilots, the thing of it is the difference between a turbine helicopter and a pilot is that, the helicopter stops whining when you shut it off.
Oh, we're zinging you. We got two in a row here, John. Well, I'm sorry now, buddy. I'm sorry now.
That's actually one of the best ones I've heard.
Yeah, that is a good one.
But
that is a good one.
I want to go back and we talked about building a culture that supports the communication that we're talking about. And Mike, you brought up going for flights. And I think that's really important to drive this point home, because I think, at least in my shop, the mechanics would usually only go for a flight before, after maintenance has been done, or like a track and balance type thing. So you're typically getting into an aircraft that isn't in its normal state of operations. You're getting in when it's maybe operating differently. So I like the idea that you proposed of, hey, hop in the aircraft, go for a flight. In law enforcement, it's fun. Go for an hour patrol flight, see what you find. Not only do you get to improve your communication and your relationship with the aircrew that you're flying with, but you're also getting a sense for how the aircraft should, like you said, operate, how it should sound, feel, smell when it's in the middle of a maintenance cycle. I think that's a great point. You do a lot of things by hopping on a flight.
Yeah, exactly. Get into their environment. This is what the mechanic needs to do: is he needs to get into the pilot's environment, to the observer, and sitting in either next to the pilot or sitting in the backseat and watching what's going on. You get to observe things that maybe the pilot doesn't. He's busy looking outside the window and communicating. And if he's doing his normal patrol, he's doing a lot of things other than paying attention to what all the instruments are telling him. This is your opportunity to see, okay, every time you did this turn or pulled something, one, I felt a vibration, or two, I saw an uptick in the temperature that looked unusual to me. Gives me all that information. And the more that you guys communicate, and you should not only talk when there's problems, but talk when there's not.
Yeah.
If you get used to communicating, then it isn't such a strain when you're trying to do troubleshooting, because you learn each other's personality.
It's an art form in itself. Scott Hayward talked a lot about it here too, and he's one of our past guests, and he's a director of maintenance up here in Canada at a facility, Alpine Helicopters. And prior to him jumping into that role, he always talked about how he would communicate with the pilots. Because listen, I know we make fun of each other with the pilots and mechanic stuff, but at the same time, he befriended a lot of pilots there to have an understanding of what they go through so that it can be properly communicated down to him. So he gets an understanding to start looking in a particular region, start looking at particular things with the AMPs, AMEs.
Right.
And it's communication is a pillar of absolute success, 100%.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if your pilots and your mechanics all get along, which is what they should.
Yeah.
And the pilots, I also feel because there's a bunch of times that I work by myself, and that's a scary job as a mechanic. I would always ask the pilot, I'd hand him the wrench and say, okay, I've taken all of these things apart. I want you to find something. Here's where I have been. Here's all the things that I took apart. I want you to go through and follow up behind me and see if you can find anything. If you just touch the wrench to the control. It gives them it makes them feel better because they know what you've taken apart and what they can expect. And it also shows them all of the things that are going on back there. Pilots that come out and ask questions, technical questions while you're working on it, they're the ones that I appreciate the most because they want to learn. And that just helps my troubleshooting, because if the more you learn the theory of it, the more you learn about how it works and why it works and why I adjust this way instead of another way, the better it is for both of us when it comes to managing the helicopter.
Goes right into that old adage, you don't know where you're going till you know where you've been.
Yeah, good. Yeah, that's true. That is true. So yeah, all of this, and these are all the things that I try to when it comes to passing it forward, these are all the things that I try to put into my presentations. When it comes to, I mean, one of the things, and I saw down in here, one of the things that we talk about as I give a presentation on turbine engine hygiene and why you keep your engines clean, and I compare it to your dental hygiene. I mean, you brush your teeth twice a day, but the most significant time you brush your teeth is before you go to bed.
Yep.
When's the best time to do your turbine engine cleaning? Before you put it away, because it gets rid of all of the stuff, and it gets rid of and it doesn't allow the corrosive stuff to accumulate on there.
Yep. He was just on one of our past shows here. He couldn't make it, but he left a great sentence there when it comes to cleaning up particular modules and your helicopter. You can't balance dirt. You know what I mean? You cannot balance dirt. And if you're working with like a not clean area, and you're trying to balance and make that work, it's never going to come out in your favor. No,
cleanliness is next to safety.
Greg Judge, there you go. That's who said it. So.
Yeah, I mean, and it's true. And these are the things, and one of the things, and they say, well, why? The question is, why do you have to use pure water when you're cleaning your turbine engine?
Yeah,
I love this conversation.
The pure water, once you distill water, it just going through the act of distillation deposits all of the stuff that water holds. Water's magnetic. It attracts inorganic items and holds on to them, the salt and all the other things, and it holds on to them. You distill it and turn it into steam. Now those things that it's holding on to are stuck on what you've used for the distillation. Now water being as pure as it is, and again, magnetic and attracting, when you run it through the engine, when it's like that, not only does it rinse and clean things, but it also attracts the stuff as it goes through.
That's right.
And holds it and then pushes it out the back end. So that's why you use pure water rather than, putting just regular old
you kind of just jumped into our next question here, and so that I'm not held. I misquoted that last quote there. It wasn't from Greg Judd. It was Greg Arnold. My bad. Sorry about that, Greg. But going to what you just said, I wanted to talk to you, and like we kind of get you going. We'll put the train back on the tracks here. You guys kind of just talking to us a little bit about the pure water, turbo pure water that you're a consultant for, right?
Correct.
So that in a quick little synopsis, you just kind of gave us that explanation. But if you want to elaborate, please do so.
Well, I mean, it's the thing about keeping your engines clean. It's also, again, relating to your dental hygiene. Preventative maintenance is really hard to justify when it comes to turbine engines, because you don't see preventative maintenance until you get to the very end when you overhaul and you go, wow, I did all of these engine cleanings and my stuff did last the full overhaul time, and it did last, and it's going to be a less expensive repair bill. So it's hard to justify that to somebody who's paying a bill, saying you're paying how much for a distillation system?
Right.
You're cleaning these engines every night. Why do you have to do that? And I go back to okay, you quit brushing your teeth for a while, and then we'll see what happens.
What's the other outcome? What's the other outcome, right? This is an entirely different conversation if that isn't practiced.
Yep. I mean, and that's the whole thing there. And sometimes, I mean, when I'm talking to a guy, I try to pick somebody in the audience and look and see who's paying attention. And if I can lock eyes with somebody, then I can explain to them. And it's amazing when you get a point across, all of a sudden you go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Now, if I can just get them to sign that check to buy the distillation system.
Yeah. Salesman hat's always on, brother. Salesman's hat's always on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, these are the things, again, that I enjoy doing when I'm out talking to and giving this information out. The thing about turbine engine hygiene is that it's a constant informational push because, again, it's preventative maintenance.
Especially if you're flying in a corrosive environment like the Gulf, the coasts, high, like even into the high desert areas, even any desert areas with the high FOD amount, like those compressor washes are probably the most critical thing you can possibly do to engine, and before you get even into it. So it's kudos.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. And even though you live in the flyover states, the Midwest, that's still got its own corrosion environment there. It's so
high humidity in the summers and super cold in the winters.
The smog and all the other fun stuff that we get.
Yep. John, you look like you had something brewing there. Sorry, buddy.
Well, we were talking recently with Bell and the importance of deionized water systems with external washes. It's the same idea, right? Yeah. Like getting rid of this corrosive substance that we have that we're flying around in. In Southern California, you talk about smog and just dirt in the air. We'd wash our ship and we'd come back from one flight, and you run your finger along the leading edge of the skid and you can see the dirt on one flight. It's disgusting. Yep. So you talk about how water's magnetized and it does attract some of those elements. Man, it's so important from a preventative standpoint to get rid of that stuff using proper elements. And when it goes to resale, the resale value of that aircraft is so much higher if you've taken those proper steps to do things, I think.
Yeah, it's the same. Yes, good point. I mean, and people don't realize just how much stuff is in the air until they do. You run your finger along the leading edge of the skid or the main rotor blade, and that's another area. Again, it's corrosion, and corrosion is subtle. You don't see it until you see the effects.
Until it's too late.
Then it's too late.
Yeah.
Like tooth decay. Again, I keep going back. I should have been a dentist, I guess.
Well, listen, you can talk about the other one now because you are the owner of Rotor Doc. So
oh, yeah.
Now, how's that for a segue? That was pretty damn good.
Yeah, I got that handle. I forget where I was talking to somebody and they said, "Okay, doctor, you know what you're talking about." And then I just kind of applied it from there and just went to Rotor Doc, and I've kept it that way.
So do you go up to a helicopter, put your hand underneath the backside and say,
"Oh, heel, feel me." Yeah.
Rotor to the left, cough.
That's great.
Talk to us a little bit. So Rotor Doc LLC, that's still yours? You're still kind of operating that?
Yeah, it's mine. And again, it's the only reason that I did it is keep the legal beagles off me. In case somebody calls. Anybody that I work with, they pay Rotor Doc. Anybody that I talk to, they're talking to the rotor dock, my limited liability corporation.
Gotcha.
That's just to protect me personally, and that's how I sign off on it, and that's how I stayed in the business.
As we stated earlier, pretty litigious society, no matter which corner of the world you're talking to.
Yeah,
understandable. And then the last bullet here, I want to kind of, you mentioned it a couple of times, is your helicopter magazine that you're kind of doing editorials for.
That I fell into. It was just by accident that I wrote an article.
Sure.
Somebody wanted one, and I wrote an article on troubleshooting, and then I continued to write because I do enjoy it. Helicopter Maintenance Magazine is really it's no charge to the maintenance guy, so we send it out free of charge. All of our bills, my pay, and everything else comes from the ads that we create.
Okay.
And we invite anybody that wants to contribute. If you've got something that you want to write about, go ahead and write about it. But they've got me hooked into 3 different articles now. One of them is Rotor Dock, which is kind of like a blog, a bit of a blog at the beginning, where I can stand on my, on my high horse and say stuff. And then I try and talk about, the drone industry. I'm trying to learn more about it and spread that information. And then a feature article that usually is a little longer and depends upon what I'm talking about. It's either troubleshooting or I find an operator that interests me and I feel that might be of interest to people, that the product that they put out or why they do what they do, that type of stuff.
Understandable.
So it keeps me off the streets and
those rowdy streets of Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah, midnight here in Arizona is 9:00. So
that's right.
That's all right. The old folks.
Really, I'd have put it at 8:30.
That's when the snowbirds show up. Yeah,
go ahead, John.
The topic of troubleshooting is interesting to me, and especially in a conversation with you, when you consider how troubleshooting is changing with the implementation of technology and all these digital systems. What advice do you have for the younger AMPs, younger mechanics who won't have the physical hands-on troubleshooting that you've had over the course of your career? What advice would you give to young folks?
Stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors.
Thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company, the choice for unrivaled safety and reliability, so you can accomplish any mission with confidence. For more than half a century, Robinson has been at the forefront of the helicopter industry. From the R-22 to the R-66 turbine, Robinson makes helicopters accessible so more people can accomplish more missions. Climb higher. For additional information, visit www.robinsonheli.com. Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
The Vertical MRO Podcast is powered by Vertical Magazine, the rotorcraft industry's #1 trusted multimedia resource. Visit Vertical Mag Media on YouTube to gain access to exclusive videos featuring operators in the field and more unique content from the pages of Vertical. Subscribe today to stay informed and inspired.
Hey everybody, this is Val here with the Vertical MRO. Thanks for listening to this part 1 of our series. If you've enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and leave a review. Your support does help and create more content like this. For those of you who want to continue the conversation, join us on our social media channels and platforms or visit our website over at verticalmag.com. We'd love to hear all your thoughts and questions about today's topics. Until next time, I'm Val. This is Vertical MRO. We'll be seeing you.
This has been the Vertical MRO Podcast. Join us next time for another edition of the Vertical MRO Podcast, brought to you by Vertical HeliCASTS.